Hi, it's Dave T here, and I've had the Tilta Nucleus Nano follow focus system for coming up on like a year now, so I thought it was time to make a quick review and highlight both the pros and the cons of this follow focus system, as well as giving some tips on getting the most out of it. Also, this happens to be the first review I'm recording using my new homemade teleprompter, and I'll put a link kind of about up here, so hopefully this will improve my on-screen dialogue somewhat. So before we begin, let's cover off the basics as to why you might need or want a follow focus system. Basically, a follow focus system allows you to control the focus ring of your lens remotely, in this case wirelessly. But it is not limited to focus, so if your lens has a manual aperture control ring, then you can control the aperture of the lens, and also on zoom lenses you can potentially also control the zoom. This means that these can either be controlled by an assistant or by yourself if, for example, you're in front of the camera, such as in a self-recorded interview like this one, where you may want to adjust and correct the focus once you've actually sat down. It is also almost essential if you want to do smooth focus pulls from one object to another. So now you have an idea of why you might need this, let's consider what it does well. The Tilta Nucleus Nano is a relatively low-cost entry-level system and is particularly applicable for use on gimbals such as the Ronin S. The most obvious benefit is that it is small and light, weighing in at just 76 grams for the motor and 160 grams for the controller. It's powered by USB, which allows you to use lower cost power solutions, though this does come with a penalty which I'll mention later. The unit I purchased comes with a power cable to connect the Ronin S, as well as mounting plates for both the Ronin S and the Zion Crane gimbals. This emphasises the target market for this focus system. It's been pretty reliable and has a smooth action, so in terms of general use it does what it's supposed to do and does it pretty well. It also comes with a pleasant carry case, though personally I would prefer a case that is smaller with just enough space to carry the motor and control unit. This is because the additional accessories such as the riser plate with the rod and the mounts for fixing the control wheel to the gimbal are likely to be fixed to the main camera rig or left at home if they are not required. So let's look at where the Nucleus Nano does not do so well. The first issue is going to sound like nitpicking, but unfortunately it's a problem that really does make the Nano very difficult to use in certain situations. The LCD screen on the controller has very small writing, which in itself is a bit of an issue, but the main problem is that it is also very dim. So much so that outside on anything but the most overcast day it becomes pretty much impossible to read. This leads to two problems, the first of which is that it's actually quite hard to see if the controller is even turned on. So much so that I've often left it on by mistake. The second issue is that when setting A-B points for focus pulls, you're often working blind and have to remember if you have or have not set each point. Both issues can be worked around, but it is quite annoying and something that I'd hope that they fix in a future version. The second related issue is that there is no power timeout on the controller, which means that if you do forget to turn it off, something as we said that is quite easy to do because of how dim the screen is, then the controller will just run the battery down completely. The final issue is the low torque output of the motor, which may or may not be a problem for you, and fortunately there is a workaround for this. When powered by USB, the motor receives 5 volts, which gives it a torque output of 0.65 Newton meters according to the specs. This is usually enough to drive the focus and aperture controls of most lenses, but may struggle to drive some stiffer lenses and certainly struggle to drive the zoom on almost any lens. If you do try to control such a lens, then the motor will automatically cut out and protect itself. This leads us to the tips and tricks section, as fortunately a close inspection of the specs tells us that the motor will actually deliver a whole Newton meter of torque when powered with 14.8 volts. That's almost double the USB powered torque. The connector on the motor is a micro USB, which implies the 5 volt input limit. But the supplied power cable for the Ronin S to micro USB actually takes 12 volts from the Ronin, which gives us a clue as to what might be able to happen here. So what you can do is either purchase an alternative cable from Tilta or make your own micro USB cable to connect to any power supply that delivers between 5 and 14.8 volts. Here I've taken an old car cigarette micro USB charger cable, cut off one end, double checked the voltage polarity and then connected a new socket, in this case to take power from my monitor power output. The next tip is a minor thing which may or may not concern users that connect the control wheel to the Ronin S. When mine arrived, the clamp lever still stuck outwards when in the lock position, making it prone to either being knocked as well as just generally looking untidy. This can easily be repositioned, however, by removing the small cover plate using a TX or star screwdriver. Make sure you don't use a standard Phillips screwdriver, and then realigning the small cogwheel. The other thing to mention is that an additional mounting bracket can be purchased, which is useful if you want to attach the controller to either a cage or, in my case, quite often my slider for convenience. All in all, despite the 2 or 3 minor issues I've pointed out, the Tilta is actually a very good unit for the price point, and overall it's a pretty good system. It also has some compatibility with the higher end Tilta products should you upgrade later on. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, then please hit that like button, and if you are interested in seeing other videos that I make, then please consider subscribing to my channel. As always, thanks for watching.